I'm going to be honest, blunt and straight to the point with this video. It's going to be short, but I've already described what I felt about this episode down in the video description with my blog post. But I just want to get this out there because I wasn't originally going to shoot this video, but because my camcorder is busted and my tripod's broken, I've got no recording equipment at this time, so I'm just using my iPhone 6 Plus. When I first saw the title and synopsis for Slice of Life, which is the 100th episode of My Little Pony Friendship is Magic, I thought I was going to be in for quite a treat. For an episode to celebrate the accomplishments of the last 5 years and to look forward to the future of the show. But what I saw instead was nothing like the episode I have in mind. I'm going to be blunt here, as I said on Twitter. Episode 100 sucked. Now you may think this is a little too harsh and a little too extreme considering the fandom reaction so far is pretty much through the roof in the positive levels. But my inner Simon Cowell was working 24 hours a day during this episode. And despite the best of efforts to remain positive throughout the whole thing, and even going in blind, I had my worst fears realised in the space of 30 minutes. Now you may be asking, why did this all go wrong? For me, this is just on personal thoughts, this is not the thoughts of others. This episode was overhyped, and in terms of episode promotion, it was pretty much in your face in the lead up to it going to air. This resulted in me being turned off from watching it right in the first place. I mean, things could have been a little different if the promotion was turned down a little bit and released in bite-sized chunks instead of one big scoop. Now, the episode itself. The idea of background ponies having an episode to themselves was, in my opinion, a disaster waiting to happen. And I was not even interested right when the episode was announced, when it aired, and after it aired. And those thoughts didn't change after I watched it. I mean, although on a positive note, not all of it was bad. There were some things that I liked, including the bowling scenes, that reflected my real-world experience during my league career. This episode also ended up directly pandering to fans. Way too much. And it overloaded it with too much fan service to the point that I felt I was being force-fed into the episode. Now for the record, I don't even like fandom stuff with the exception of Equestria Girls, but I'll talk about that in a future video. The only redeeming thing about this episode was the wedding of Cranky Doodle and Matilda, and that was very well done for the most part. My emotions during this episode varied, and I can show these with my newest acquisitions, and don't feel weird if I do this. This is how I felt 2 weeks before the episode aired. I was in fear. This is how I felt when the episode went to air. This is how I felt when, pretty much off the fan service, but it wasn't all that bad. After all, you can have a little bit of sadness for Shining Armour crying at a wedding. It's okay to be sad. But none at any time, at any specific point, I didn't feel happy about it. And this episode could have had a lot of changes put through it. A couple of ideas for suggestions. First and foremost, for starters, I would have kept the main story in play, but add the main 6 into the story earlier rather at the end of the episode. Now the reason I'm mentioning this is when the door was slammed on the main 6 well before the wedding ceremony started, I felt it was completely rude and uncalled for. They could have allowed him inside and joined in on the moment rather than being left out in the cold. Now I know this is an episode based on background characters, but the main 6 also played a part in making the wedding happen. After all, it was Pinkie Pie who helped Cranky find Matilda and got him to this point in time. Without Pinkie's involvement, there wouldn't even be a wedding, or the outcome of the episode would have been a whole lot different. Secondly, I would have toned down the fan service to an acceptable level. And even if it's for the off chance, I would have had the main six interact with the background ponies, even if it's just for a few seconds. Last but not least, in terms of publicity and promotion, I would have staged the release of the teaser material over the 2 weeks and also setting guidelines on how not to cause people to be turned off due to the promotion being oversaturated and overloaded. Now, even if this means having to publish a guide on the episode on how to mute a hashtag, turn on the spoiler feature in the EQD app, and also deal with methods with the haters when it comes to expressing opinions. One earlier idea which came up before the episode aired was to scrap the entire story altogether and just have the main 6 background ponies in a studio's audience style talking about their time in Ponyville, and also show some select highlights from seasons past. You still get your background characters having a say in a vocal role, and at the same time you make the fans happy without getting offside. But alas, this won't do, because it would have split the fandom right into 2. So overall, as I said at the start, I did not like this episode one bit. And I'm sorry for those who liked it or loved it. I didn't mean to cause any harm. But even after watching it, my mind was already made up well before it aired. It is a shame that it had to come to this, because the 100th episode is a big milestone. It's a centenary. And it could have been done a lot better if none of the things actually happened or would have been improved upon in terms of overhype. Now, will I watch this again in the near future? Absolutely not. Well, not until at least the hype dies down and I get a clear head on things, then I might reconsider my stance on it. But right now, I just want to simply erase my thoughts and memories of this one night. That should have celebrated the show's history and success, but instead it turned out to be nothing but an old bust. To close things off, here's a little quote. You can please some of the people all the time. You can please all the people some of the time, but you can't please all the people all the time. And that rings true.